You can feel like you're there for everyone else, but then who's there for you? Because no one really knows that you're struggling underneath.
Hi everyone, it's Rosie here. Welcome back to Radio Headspace. You know that feeling when everything you're presenting to the world seems totally fine, but inside you're absolutely filled with anxiety? It's annoying, it's difficult, and unfortunately, it's very common. But as always, I've found just the person to help. Today, my guest is Dr. Lalitaa Suglani. She's a psychologist and one of the world's leading experts on high-functioning anxiety. This one is gentle, honest, and so incredibly helpful. I really hope you enjoy it. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I've been listening to a lot of interviews that you've done, and I think this idea of learning tools to navigate anxiety has become such a prevalent need in our society, especially right now. It just feels, I mean, you know, we're in the United States, so it just feels like the numbers of depression and anxiety have been very progressively on the rise. And so I know that this is something that you speak to a lot. And so I guess I'd love to just start with asking you how you got interested in high functioning anxiety.
Thank you so much for that. And how did I get interested? Like when I think I've lived the experience. So when I say I've lived the experience from a young age, like my dad, he was born in India. He came to the UK when he was very young, and it was just to work. So he came with his own values, his own way of thinking about things, and how he just wanted to give the best to his family. So he worked his entire life, and he's still working, and he just wanted to give the best life. So naturally, I'm one of five, and seeing that, I ended up becoming almost like the good girl, the one who was there. I'm the second oldest out of the five.
I was
So
going to
I
ask
took
you,
on the
where did
role.
you fall in line?
So
Okay,
I'm
so
the
you're
second
second.
oldest.
Okay.
And yeah, naturally, I took on the good girl role where I just started following the rules of what I thought was expected of me. And it's only until I got into my 20s where I started studying more about psychology, I realized I didn't actually know who I was. So I was in this high functioning way of living, trying to do everything to please others, trying to live life because of what others wanted from me. And I didn't even know anything about me. I didn't know what my needs were. I didn't know who I was behind this high functioning, this achievement, this over compensating for others. And it's only then when I entered therapy because of that, I started to unravel a lot more. And I was like, how many people struggle with this? So then when I started studying my doctorate, I was on placement with individuals, and the same thing kept coming up. And I just started writing about it. And I was like, I know this is going to become something. I'm just going to keep writing. And then that's when I connected and I had a conversation with the publishers, and we were like, this is what is needed. This is what is so many people go through. And there's no title for it because it's not a diagnosable label that we have. So it's really interesting. But so many people that hear it, they're like, have you been following me all my life? How do you know all of this stuff about me?
Well, just to give people the definition of what high functioning anxiety is, what is it?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I see it as a bit like a swan. So the swan analogy is like at the top of the swan, where it's gliding above the water, we see that it's calm, it's collected, it looks beautiful, it looks like it's so peaceful. But underneath, it's sort of like flapping away, and it's trying to understand like the flapping represents the overthinking, the catastrophizing, the disconnect from your own emotions, the people pleasing, the rumination as well of like, what if this happens, what if this happens, and no one sees that. And because there's two parts of high functioning anxiety, there's a part that people see, and often that's because we want to show people this part because we feel like they need to see that, then we'll be accepted. But then we might be afraid to show the bottom. Now that disconnect can also then lead to things like disconnection of self, where you don't understand your own needs and values. It may then impact on like you having or falling into burnout, and also loneliness because no one really sees you. And you can feel like you're there for everyone else, but then who's there for you? Because no one really knows that you're struggling underneath.
Yeah, I think the loneliness bit is very compelling because I think that we changed so much post COVID when we
Yeah.
were in this state of isolation. And it does seem like we're now 4 or 5 years later seeing the ramifications of being in that space. So I'm curious what your experience in connecting the two, loneliness and anxiety, like what sort of
Yeah.
correlations have you seen, and what kind of what kind of techniques or what kind of practices can we use to navigate that?
I see it a lot with clients, and I know that I've been researching more into loneliness and understanding it. And I know there was a study done, and the study showed that feeling loneliness is like having 15 cigarettes in one day. So that's the physical impact. And physiologically, as human beings, we have like hormones, so we have oxytocin, and we need that from other people. And if we're not getting that, and then we're on our phones scrolling, trying to replace things that physiologically that we need. So what I will often say to people is, first of all, it's about you being vulnerable with people as well, because you're naturally wanting these deeper connections. If you're going and having surface level conversations and people don't really see you, yes, you're getting some level of your needs met, but not properly, not to the point where you're not coming home feeling exhausted. You want to feel nurtured, but people won't know what's going on for you unless you speak out. And for me, it's the courage of being vulnerable, because if you've never had that space to do that, or it's never been okay to share your emotions or to express your needs, because early on in life, maybe your attachments, they didn't know how to manage things that were going on for you. So you learned to suppress parts of you. And now as an adult, you're like, I can't show that. Like, people are going to reject me or abandon me. And this all might be happening at a subconscious level. So people aren't even aware that this is happening. So instead, they're meeting friends, but they're desiring something deeper, but they don't know what. And that's where the inner work is so important, where you start to learn more about yourself and understand your patterns.
Yeah, I think I mean, being vulnerable is one of the hardest things
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do, right? Because I can totally relate, even for me, like I have all the internal tools and the knowledge, and I know how to communicate. But there have been times, especially when I'm really overwhelmed, I'll see a friend, we have a date, a coffee date or a tea date, and this specific incident just happened like 2 weeks ago. And I go and I sit with her, and she's like, "How is everything?" And I'm like, "Oh, everything's great. Everything's great. Yeah, yeah, I'm busy and this and that's happening, but like everything's good." But in the reality is like, no, I'm actually really struggling. I'm really overwhelmed, and it feels to me like if I start telling her exactly what's happening, that it's going to be overwhelming for her. And so I'm trying to not be a burden. And so I feel like a lot of people might relate to that in some way. So I guess, where do we find the balance with being vulnerable, but also not sort of dumping on the people that we care about?
It's so interesting that you said that. My brain is literally buzzing with all these different
I know,
questions I want to
I'm
ask
sorry.
you about, like about the situation. But I do feel like that's the narrative that we create, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to be a burden, but it's like, where did I learn that? And also, you might get a sense that this person isn't someone that can emotionally hold you. So you might already have that like instinct or that intuition, but there's a part of you that's like, oh, I don't want to open up, because maybe you've tried to open up, or that you've said, yeah, everything's fine, and they've said, are you sure? Like, they haven't come back to you. So you may feel like, do I trust this person enough to share? So there might be a part that's protecting yourself, because you feel like, if I do share and if I do start saying something, actually what might happen? This person might reject me, or this person might abandon me. So there might be something else going on there. But the other layer of that is that you feel like, I'm going to be a burden if I share this, because they've got this going on and they've got this going on. And then I don't want to add in, and I don't want to be too much. But goes deeper into a belief system of, I don't want to be too much, because if I am, when I was too much once upon a time, what happened? People weren't able to be there for me. So this is a learned behavior then, that we learn, that I can't share with people because they're never going to be there. I have to just deal with it by myself. And I know it's scary, but being vulnerable isn't just like you have to share everything. You might just start with one thing and just see how that connection then gradually is going. And if you feel like you're losing the person, you can say, is this a lot for you? Because like I said, I'm mindful of that. And I'm mindful of like just sharing, and I don't want this to become that space where I'm just offloading here, but I want to just check in with you. So that's okay to do as well.
Well, I love that because it's so true because
Yeah,
on the outside we might look like everything's put together, but internally it's we're struggling. And I think that that's sort of the connection too, right? Where we don't know how to express
yeah,
ourselves in an honest way. And I think that, you know,
definitely.
what you're asking us to do is, I think it's a practice of discernment. Like we also need to be able to discern whether or not this person is the person to hold this and this person isn't. But it
Yeah.
still requires so much internal awareness.
Yeah, and not taking it personally either. If
Right.
someone is says to you no, for example, it's not to personalize it. And if, for example, you are a people pleaser and you're worried about saying no, it's like, actually, do I need to regulate guilt or regulate shame? Because I feel that by me saying yes, what am I really avoiding? I'm avoiding then having to sit in guilt. And guilt saying, you're a bad person. This person wanted to speak to you and you're not even going to give them time of day. And you're just like, but I've got to get back and I need to do my work and I've got this to do and I haven't got the space, I haven't got the capacity. But guilt just keeps going yapping on and it's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with my guilt. I'll just listen. So it's like, how do we learn to regulate our guilt and the shame that we might feel for saying no? And that's where growing our boundaries, and the more we're doing it, the stronger we get in it.
Yeah, and I think as well to add to that, I go straight to the mindfulness bit of it and how it's part of our mindfulness practice to be aware, to
Yeah.
be able to express honestly and, you know, in a very kind and considerate way. You know, one thing that you said that really struck me is that would require us to have friends in our lives where we are our full authentic selves, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, do you think that part of why we're in this space of having high levels of anxiety, do you think it's because more of us are retracting and not sharing because of things like social media, because of what we're seeing other people do, like it makes us feel, yeah, like
I think that's a
inadequate
level.
or do
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely get what you're saying. And I think there's a level of that where people can like, if the root of high functioning anxiety is you not feeling good enough. So if you're then going on social media and you're seeing things, you might then be feeling like I'm not as good as them. Then the imposter comes out in your mind and it then can stop you, and it also then suppresses you from speaking out. So like even just being like in a circle with your friends and everyone's talking about something, you might be more of like the introvert that's sitting, watching, and observing because it's a lot. There's a lot to sort of like be overstimulated with. But it might be that, well, my opinion doesn't really matter. Like, I don't mind. And we keep doing that. So we keep suppressing ourselves down. But sometimes it's because we don't want to come across like we're too much, that we're a burden, that we're taking up space. So we shrink ourselves down. So we then don't take up that space because we don't want to come across where someone's going to judge us. Because that's the thing that we're trying to avoid. We don't want someone to see us in a bad light. So we will just keep doing and giving and being as small and quiet as we can.
So that's so true. And it does bring me to the next question, you know, staying on the topic of high functioning anxiety. What are the signs of high functioning anxiety? Like, especially in people who seem successful or high
Yeah.
achieving, like, does it affect entrepreneurs differently? Does it affect the everyday person differently? You know, what are some of the signs?
So everyone is very different in how they will present. So if, for example, you're someone who is go, 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 and you don't know how to stop, because if you stop, you feel guilty, you feel bad, you don't feel like you've been productive, and you feel like, okay, I can, like I remember having one client and they said to me, they were hospitalized for burnout, and they said, okay, finally I'm able to relax now. And just have a few days off and then I'll come back to the office. And I was like, no, 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 that's not what's going to happen. But that's to the extreme that it can be. It's like going for a coffee in the day. You feel really bad, you feel guilty, and it feels like you always need to be doing something. But the point with that is that you again want to avoid yourself. You don't want to be with your own thoughts, so you keep yourself over and over. And then another sign is you're over prepared. Everything that you do, you'll be over prepared, just in case, just in case. So you're going away somewhere. It's like, just in case take 2 bottles of shampoo, just in case I'll take this, or just in case I'll have this as a backup. So you're always thinking just in case. If you've got a meeting to get to, you'll get there like 10 minutes, 15 minutes earlier than everyone else, because you just want to like prepare yourself, feel really like within yourself. Another sign is that you always come across like you're the strong one. So everyone thinks that you've got it together, that you're this capable person, and you are capable. But that's all that people will see from you. They don't see the struggle or what else is going on for you. So for them, they just see that, oh, this person like seems to be together. I can then tell them this thing, or I can share this. Another sign is you might constantly be overthinking. So you're always in the back of your head thinking about, what if this happens, and what if this happens, and what if this happens. So you're always in your own head, and you start to intellectualize things. You might then start ruminating. So when we think of what's going on in your mind and intellectualizing, you might understand what's going on for you, but you're not feeling into your emotions. So another sign there is the disconnection of emotions that you have. So you might feel joy, happy, sadness, you might feel anxiety, but you don't really feel it in your body. Another sign is you might people please to avoid your own discomfort. So there might be times where you are so worried about other people's sort of like reactions. You can see the slightest change in their facial reaction, and you're like, oh no, I've upset them. So to regulate yourself again, you might then end up people pleasing. You might feel like you're constantly acting or you're performing to try and show people that this is who I am. But again, that can be a mask that you've got to try and keep yourself safe. And again, you might try and just hide your struggles using humor, helpfulness as a way of coping. And catastrophizing. You in your mind, you can be catastrophizing any event at any point, thinking, oh, what if this happens, and what if this happens? And that's just exhausting. And you might have this fear of like, if people find out what I'm really like, if people really find out how I am, then they're going to reject me or they're going to abandon me. So you have this constant fear of being found out.
God, I'm like, what if you check all? What if you check all of these boxes?
Shall I continue?
I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, so I guess if somebody out there is like me and you start to feel like Dr. Lalitaa is speaking directly to you, so how then, one of the things that I find, and especially as you're saying that, a lot of these like characteristics or items as I'm going down and checking them off, like so many people get praised for them.
Yeah.
So many people get
Yeah.
praised for
Yeah.
being productive, or for the level of time that they're investing in a project. It's like it's so celebrated, right? So how do we then begin to break this cycle, right? If we start to notice, okay, some of those things I can absolutely 100% relate to. So then how do we start to break the cycle of that? Like, what are the first steps that we can take to begin to mitigate these things that are causing us to have high levels of anxiety?
I think it's really interesting you said about the praise that you get, and if I go back to my journey being the good girl, like we get praise, but it's like the more praise you get, it's like, oh, I'm doing something good, I've got the praise, I've got the dopamine now, and then we keep connecting that to like, okay, if I keep doing more of this, then I'm good essentially, and people then see me in a way, I'm needed, I'm of value. But then you've never really nurtured yourself, so that feeling of where you feel like I'm not good enough, it's found a way to be enough. And the way that it's found to be enough is using other people to validate your experiences. So you're living outside in. But what we want to try and do is change that to live inside out. So you're going from within, being more intentional with what's going on within you, to then bring it out and communicate with the world. And the way that you do that is by developing your self-trust. So one of my chapters in my book is around, first of all, we need to go back. We need to unlearn the things that we have learned of how we need to be in the world. But then we need to relearn, and we need to step into actually, who is it that I want to be and why do I want to be this way? But to do that, we also have to learn to love ourselves. we have to learn to develop this self-compassion, so that inner critic, the imposter, isn't the loud one. Because once upon a time, that had to be the loud one. That had to be the one in control. That had to be the one that was constantly looking out for people's reactions and seeing that we don't want to upset anyone. But now you're saying, hey, it's okay. We can let go of that. And there's another way of being. And this is where you're connecting with your inner child, understanding your earlier belief system, why it was formed in the way that it was. So you're connecting back. And sometimes people will say, well, I had a really good upbringing. My parents were fine. They gave me everything. But we also need to look at the emotional side, because you may have been someone with greater depth of emotions, and your mom and dad or attachments, they didn't have that level. So you learned to suppress part of your emotional depth because it was like, I have to meet people where they're at. And you then saw that as being the problem. But actually, that's the gift. That's the gift in high functioning anxiety, because there's been a part of you that you've been disconnected from because you thought it wasn't good enough. So for me, the work happens when you start seeing yourself as you are and start connecting to all parts of you, even the parts that you've locked away and you've hidden the key somewhere. It's like, no, we're going to find that key and we're going to meet all parts of us, because when we do, we're then aligned with who we are and we develop the self-trust. So if we say no to someone that we can't meet tonight, and they send a message back saying, oh, that's really disappointing, rather than us getting that inner dread in our stomachs and like our heart, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like, you know what, that's okay. This is her responsibility of how she's feeling. I've told her I'm not able to because of these things, but it's okay for her to feel these emotions. It's not my responsibility to make it better. But what I can say is, as I said, I'd love to reschedule. So you're not falling into the space of, I need to fix it, I need to make it better. Yeah. Because that's our nervous system connected to theirs. And what we want to do is start to regulate our own nervous system.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many coffee, tea dates, lunch dates I've been on that I just really did not want to go to and didn't have the time for, and how many times I'd come home and tell my partner, like, that was a big waste of time. Like I spent all this time in traffic and then I got there and then, like just feeling like, so I think for me, I can absolutely relate to what you're saying, because I've really had to learn that. And I love what you said about disconnecting your nervous system from the other person, because it's so, especially, it's like a well-mannered, I grew up in a Hispanic household. I was raised Catholic, it's like there was all these rules and all this dogma, and you had to, show up even when you didn't want to. Like, so I have this old conditioning where, you have to, it doesn't matter what you want, right? Like what you want is irrelevant. You have to, essentially be a people pleaser. And so I've worked the majority of the last, 20 plus years trying to undo that and set more boundaries in place, and telling myself that what I want and my time matters and it's important. And just because I'm choosing my feelings doesn't mean that your feelings are any less. So I guess, how do you employ the people in your life to help support this new way of being? And how do we begin to establish that sense of agency within ourselves?
Yeah. So I would say when you first start understanding like what's gone on for you and what's happening, you can also then develop like resentment and frustration with people, because people have learned that you are like a yellow color, and they are used to, every time I click my fingers, you'll say yes, and it'll be great. Then all of a sudden you've said no. So that's shocking for them. So they're like, what? Like, what do you mean no? So they can then be like, okay, like either, and this is where it depends on their level of self-awareness, their level of how far they've gone in their inner journey, because they can then take that as like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. You're never there for me anymore. You've just changed. And then from that, you can then introduce a conversation, say, look, can we talk about this? Because I just feel like I've got a perspective that I want to share with you, and I'd love for you to hear that. Now, if they don't want to hear that and they want to stick with their blinkers and they want to focus on like what it is, that's their journey. They're on a journey where right now they can't look within, and you can't force them to be within. It's like you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And this is where friendships can come to a pause, or come to like you separate your ways. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be separated forever. It just means right now where you two are as souls, it's not connecting. Like your needs aren't being met. So you will get resentful because you're like, why do you not understand? Like, I'm changing. I've always been there for you. Now it's my turn and I want something back, and it's one thing I want and you can't even give it. But we also have to understand that they've always seen us as yellow. We've never needed to depend on them. Now, all of a sudden, we are wanting something, and they're like, what? Because they don't understand that language. So when we're growing, this is what can tend to happen and what we tend to see. So again, having the conversation if that comes up, and if it doesn't, then it's like, you know what, we just need to start like separating. And that may not be a conversation you have, that might just be you just continue living and doing the things that you're doing, but then being mindful of the narrative you're creating of them, because you're not saying, oh, they're a bad person. You're saying, no, they're just on their journey, and right now they're not ready to see what I can see. And the more you do it, the more then you start attracting your vibration of people around you as well. Because for a long time, if you've been a people pleaser, you will naturally be around people that need you, people that are taking from you, right? Because you don't want to give to anyone. So you will have a lot of takers. So you'll be the sun in your sort of solar system. But now you want to find the other suns that you can connect with, that see you as the sun and see you as who you are, rather than being around people and forcing them to be like you and give you what you need. It's like, it's time for you to really see yourself and see your light and move towards others with that light, and not to like force yourself into spaces that don't serve you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. You want to go and find other suns. Like, this is so, it's so helpful. How do we do it? Like, I want to find the other suns. Like, how somebody that's listening to this right now and is just nodding their head along like I am, like, yes, yes, I needed this conversation today. How do we find those other suns?
We need to like create a website and just be like,
Right?
sons, if you're here,
This is
like
what
come
I'm
to us.
saying. Come join us, because I feel like everything that you're saying, it's funny because I was just having this conversation with our producer before we started. I do feel like I've established really great boundaries in the last handful of years, but I think the guilt is still there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
still feel that guilt sometimes, where I might get a friend give a passive aggressive comment like, oh, I saw you post on Instagram, but you've not responded to my text, you know? And before that used to really irritate me. And now I'm just like, yeah, like, and
Yeah.
like,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
and you saying that is making me want to respond to you less, you
Yeah.
know? But I used to allow things like that to really break me down, and
Yeah.
I don't anymore. But I still feel like there's work here, and I love that you're speaking to this, and I feel like you've given us some really great tools to navigate this, or even to just reflect on and consider, because at the end of the day, it sounds like we still have to take responsibility, and
Yeah.
we still have to be the ones to show up, right?
Yeah. And in the way that you just described that relationship, so if that friend had turned around and said, "Hey, I'm feeling a little bit hurt. I haven't heard from you in a while, and I'm just really sad that I haven't got to spend time with you. But I've seen that you're on social media, and there's things that you're busy doing. But I'd really like if we can book something in because I'm feeling really sad." Isn't that like a beautiful way of
Yes.
communicating, and just you then understanding where they're at? But then this is the language that you have to learn through you understanding your needs and you
Yeah.
understanding, I am feeling this. Not, oh yeah, look, she's obviously posting on social media, so she clearly has like other things going on. But that's a narrative we create. And it's like, why do we
Yes.
run with the narrative? Let's stop and start understanding what narrative is it that keeps coming up and what's going on in your mind. Because if you don't, what's going to keep happening is you're going to keep running into that space. But when you're doing that inner work, you understand, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's happening. And like you said, if there are people who are going to be passive and aggressive like that, it's like, okay, do you feel then like you want to spend time? Because naturally you're going to feel a little bit hurt, and you'll be like, oh, like I'm just doing things for me and right now, and it's not fair that other people don't see that and don't
Yeah.
appreciate that. But they're so used to you being there all the time, so they're trying to grieve that, you're trying to grieve yours. And it's like, if people spoke more and communicated more, it would be would have these deeper relationships. But to do that, we have to do inner work, and that's ongoing. That's not something that
Yeah.
you just get to and you get a certificate and it's like, right, you are the sun and that's it. It's like, no, you will continue working. There's going to be triggers that come up every single day in your life, but if you have the right tools, it's using them triggers to keep evolving, and people will keep coming and going out your life, and it's being okay with that, because as you're evolving and growing, you're learning more about yourself.
I love what you're saying about that grieving experience,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of the times, I don't want to generalize. I can speak for myself. I tend to avoid those types of situations because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to be vulnerable sometimes, and to be honest, and to show up as your full self. But
Yeah.
I also feel like it's part of this journey, and it's part of the process. And I feel like being honest and upfront with people and really expressing yourself in a heart-centered way
Yeah.
is way more productive.
Sometimes I think it's picking and choosing where you're going to hold the mirror up. And sometimes holding the mirror up is coming from your genuine and authentic space, which is, hey, look, you've just sent that message. I'm a little bit confused as to what you mean by that. I've got loads of things going on. If you want to find out, then yeah, I'd like to, or I'd prefer a different way of you messaging me. So you're just holding the mirror up rather than it being like, oh, but I think there's so many people out there that will always have something to say. You have to pick and choose where your energy goes as well, and which relationships you really want to work on as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Lalita. I've learned so much from this conversation. And when I tell you I need it, I'm not kidding. I really needed to hear this today. And I'm so grateful. So what are you currently working on, and where can people reach you for more information they want to learn more?
So I actually do a lot of shadow work, inner child work, and that's my forte, which I absolutely love. And just like you've done yoga. I study very holistically in how we do mind, body, energy. So if anyone wants to get in contact, they can connect with me through my website, www.drlalita.com, or Instagram, which is the handle is at dr.lalita, Lalita. And then you can also get hold of my book as well, High Functioning Anxiety.
Yay, we'll put those links in the show notes. And I also follow you on Instagram, and I highly recommend, because you do add such value with your content. It's really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the work that you do, and for joining us today on Radio Headspace.
Thank you, Rosie. I appreciate your time. Thank you.